Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, clouds of all ages, welcome to another electrifying edition of the Sanctum Forecast. It is currently Sanctum Forecast number 19. No matter where you are in the world, whether it be morning, afternoon, or night, we are here to give you a kick in the ass because it is going to be an amazing forecast today. We are unpacking the insane growth that we've had at Sanctum so far. So far, we have 800 people joining the stream. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to allow a little bit more time for people to join. And of course, my name is Ito. I am the Chief Vibes Officer over at Sanctum, making sure that everyone has a good time. Let's get some of these comments. And of course, we have Cho and OG Clouds, Sanctum member, W Clouds. I love James's nickname for Cho GPT. We got some digits. Hey, ya folks. And Tiggles with lots of clouds over there. I don't know how to pronounce this screen name. It's like Ampolampan. Hello, Cloudies. And of course, OG Cloud Fam member, Lucio. Very good to see you, as always. And Nenye, oh my goodness, we always love to see a Nenye appearance. And Web3 Roy, also a goated community member, and we have Sumptuous as well. So, of course, we have a lot of familiar faces in attendance, but of course, we have many things to cover on today's forecast. And we have a very special guest. I don't know if you guys can see some of that blurred out text, but guess what? You can't. And you guys are going to be very excited to listen to this next speaker. But first, of course, we got to go through the spiel. Why are we here? Well, we are here to talk about all things in the Sanctosphere. What exactly is the Sanctosphere? Number one, it's about the most bullish news about Sanctum. It's about the most delightful products that are being built on Solana. In fact, you look at our designs, we talk about this all the time internally, but our one of our co-founders, CW, man, that guy really cares about his pixels, and it really shows in the products that you love and enjoy. And of course, we're here to talk about it all with the most earnest Cloud fam. We've had folks that have been tuning in week after week after week, even with hiatuses. Sometimes it's not every week, but y'all show up anyways. Thank you so much for joining this edition of the Sanctum Forecast. We are going to get started right now. And of course, we're here to celebrate together as one big family. I mean, the market's up, the market's down, it doesn't matter. We celebrate. Why? Because we are running full speed, launching some of the best products on Solana, and there's, quite frankly, a lot of things to celebrate today. Of course, we have some house rules over here at Sanctum. Number one, we want you to hype up the chat. So if you are not spamming the chat, we're going to have a little bit of a problem because it's not going to be so much fun. So put your hands right over the W key and be sure to press them because we got a lot of W's today. Number two, we need you to think long term. Again, prices up, prices down, prices crab walking. It does not matter. And it doesn't matter because we apply long-term thinking in every situation. What matters is that you position yourself for the opportunities that you have. And that means thinking more long-term. And of course, we want you to be thoughtful and kind. There's no need to be a jerk online. And last but not least, if you're not having a good time, then why are you even here? Please, let's have a good time on today's Sanctum Forecast. Just like the last couple of weeks, we are running an insane giveaway. We've done this, and I think it's a crowd pleaser, and it gives you plenty of reasons to stay very hype today. Number one, we need you to retweet the forecast. This is an especially important forecast. We're talking about all the reasons to be bullish on Sanctum, and not only Sanctum, but also Cloud. And not only do we need you to retweet the forecast, but we want you to ask meaningful questions. I think that other streams that you attend, people just want low quality spam in the chat. Over at Sanctum, that is not our ethos. That is not what we care about. We want you to apply your brains. And so if you have any meaningful questions that you want to ask about Sanctum, even if they're critical, we're here to listen. And last but not least, we are going to pick 3 winners for this giveaway. And in fact, speaking of winners, we're going to be talking about the winners from the last couple of giveaways. For our first batch, we had, of course, Cho, Lucio, Some Digits, all people who were here since the beginning of the stream. If you're wondering why they got jerseys for the first batch, well, I mean, come on. These guys are always showing up on time. So really want to give these guys their props. But even more exciting news, we have 3 more winners from the last giveaway from the forecast last week. Yes, it is you, Some Digits. We have Nenye, Sumptuous, and Nicholas Macdesi. I think I might be pronouncing that incorrectly. If I am, I really apologize for that, Nick the Mac. But the point being is we have some other OG Cloud members that we will be shipping very special edition Sanctum jerseys to. In fact, these jerseys are the Sanctum team doesn't even have them. So if the Sanctum team doesn't even have them, imagine how limited edition they are. We might not be doing this again. So if you want to get these really special jerseys, then I really encourage you to stay active in the chat, retweet the stream, and of course, have a very good time. Moving on, of course, we have more giveaways just to make sure that we can spread the word. Of course, we want everybody to watch the stream, but not everybody has time for that shit. So we want you to take this stream and turn it into your best thread. We have a prize pot of 50 USDC. And speaking of which, our winner from last week is none other than Nenye, who has been writing threads day in, day out, every single week. She's been doing an absolutely phenomenal job. It's her third time winning. If you want to see an example of what a quality submission looks like, please scan that QR code and you can see what it takes to be a Sanctum Forecast winner. Nenye, congratulations on joining the 3-Peat Club. So for today's agenda, we're covering two things. Let's slow it down just a little bit. I'm going to catch my breath. We're going to be talking about cloud, right? And I think there's a lot of anxious people out there who have been waiting for us to talk about all the bullish things about Sanctum, all the bullish things about cloud. And, you know, we do get a lot of feedback about like, why don't you talk about cloud more? Like, are you allergic to it? What's wrong? No, we're not allergic to cloud. It's just that we want to represent cloud in a way that feels true to us. And quite frankly, we don't care what other projects are doing or what people think we should be doing just because someone else is doing it. If we're going to do something, we're going to do it the Sanctum way. And we're going to get into that in just a second. What exactly is the Sanctum way of talking about cloud? And of course, we're going to be bringing back Funtarchy. I don't know if anyone here remembers Funtarchy from the earlier forecasts. We actually gave 50%. It was about for people who were staking their cloud and actively voting. They increased their cloud bags by 50%, which is absolutely insane. So you will definitely want to participate in this governance vote. And we'll be going over the basics of Funtarchy again, as well as a brand spanking new proposal with this very special guest that I have been teasing since the very beginning. But we're going to jump straight into Cloud Talk. And Cloud Talk is a new segment where we really want to talk about the cloud token. And again, in a way that feels true to Sanctum without sacrificing our core values. And number one, we have just released the Sanctum quarterly report. If you have been paying attention to the Sanctum stream, the Sanctum Twitter over the last month or so, you will realize that we have just released the Sanctum quarterly for the Q2 report. We're going to be breaking down some of the numbers within that report. And this is our way of communicating all about cloud. In fact, if you look at the inspiration behind this idea and why we decided to start working on quarterly reports, you really have to look at what traditional companies do. Companies that have listed, for example, on the New York Stock Exchange. Well, if you're a company worth your salt, there's absolutely no way that you have an investable product, in our case, it would be cloud, and you don't talk about it in a structured way, right? Like you should talk about all the bullish things that your company are doing and why exactly that's bullish for your investors, right? And so Sanctum Quarterly is essentially a mirror of existing earnings calls, quarterly earnings calls that you'll see for traditional companies, right? And there's no other team doing this in crypto. So I think we're the first to actually release a quarterly report like such. So, as usual, we are breaking new metas. And so let's break down some of the numbers that we see in the Sanctum Quarterly, right? But before we do that, there's this QR code over here. And if you want to see this very detailed report, it's optimized for mobile. It looks really, really good on your phone. Thank you so much for that. CW and the rest of the design team, you guys have smashed it as always. But please scan this QR code if you want to get all the latest alpha on why Sanctum is one of the most investable companies, not only on Solana, but in crypto. So please scan this QR code if you want to learn all about the bullish things that we are doing at Sanctum. But breaking down some of those numbers, we are, of course, going to go over an executive summary. Number one, we're going to be talking about our assets under management for Q2. So for Q2, we had 12.3 million SOL. For people who are paying attention to our TVO now, you already know we've been smashing that. But at the end of Q2, which means the end of June, we saw a 42% increase quarter over quarter in the amount of SOL staked in our protocol. And guys, we're not talking about rookie numbers. We're in the major leagues now. We've increased when I joined Sanctum, again, it was around, I think, 8 million, 9 million SOL staked. And now we're at 12.3 million, and we've reached all-time highs even recently. But still, at the end of Q2, we had 12.3 million SOL staked to the protocol. And again, what is that in value in USD? I mean, it just depends on the price of SOL. So we're just going to be sticking to SOL right now. But we have 12.3 million SOL assets under management staked through Sanctum LSTs. Absolutely phenomenal. But not only that, our revenue, has reached over $1 million, which I think is a first in company history. So congratulations to the team. And if you remember previous forecasts, what I always said was, we are going to be laser focused on growing revenue for it. I mean, every company should be focused on growing revenue, but us specifically, we made this decision at the end of last year to really hyper focus on revenue, and so we've accomplished that goal and are continuing to smash that goal. But the point of growing revenue is not to fatten our pockets, right? To be very clear, if you look at the token transparency report that we worked with Blockworks, you'll know that we're actually working on mechanisms so that value accrual cannot go to equity holders. It gets dispersed through other means. Currently, we've decided to use all this revenue to grow the protocol, right? But to be very clear, like, this is not revenue that's going to equity holders as dividends, right? Like, this is revenue that goes directly into growing Sanctum. The next stat that's very interesting is the cloud market cap, at the end of Q2. So this is as of June 30th, 2025. You can see that on the bottom left of the slide. I don't want to get any angry texts after this. Has increased to 37.8 million USD, again, at the end of June 30th. And this is at a multiple of 8.47, of our annual recurring revenue. Just for reference, a typical SaaS company, like software as a service company, will trade at a multiple of anywhere from 6 to, let's say, 10, a multiplier of 6 to 10 on the annual recurring revenue. And then you might be like, oh, okay, so Sanctum is in line with existing multiples for, businesses, traditional Web2 businesses. And that's where you're wrong, because the multiplier actually for B2B companies, which is how Sanctum has transitioned over the last few months, is anywhere from, let's say 10 to 20, sometimes even 25x, depending on the company, right? Like if we're talking about Tesla or something, like then we're talking insane multiples. It's the Elon premium, right? But this is just to say that our current multiple of the cloud market cap, as it compares to revenue, is actually very modest, right? It can and logically could, especially since we're a B2B company now, be trading at a multiple that's much higher, right? If you're just benchmarking existing B2B companies. Not financial advice, just the facts. And another thing that's really worth mentioning for this Q2 executive summary is that we had two major breakthroughs that we released in Q2, but actually has been in the works since early Q1. Number one, we acquired Ironforge, which is one of the OG validator operator companies on Solana. And number two, of course, is Gateway. Gateway, of course, was built not only by the Sanctum team, but also our new acquihires from Ironforge. And Gateway allows you to optimize your transaction processing and get full visibility into those transactions. Gives you all the granularity you need. And not only that, it's cheaper, right? So for example, let's say that you send Jito tips with every transaction. You can actually get refunds on your Jito tips when they're not used. And you might think to yourself, wait, isn't that how that already works? No, it doesn't. That's why we built it. So congratulations to the entire team, of course, for the Ironforge acquisition. Pavs, Italo, Sayantan, we absolutely love you. Thank you for joining the team and helping us launch Gateway. And of course, if you understand why we acquired Ironforge, as well as where does Gateway fit within to Sanctum's list, kind of stack of products and services, this is a graph that was first sketched out by FP on a whiteboard. And this explains the value stack, right? So users pay fees to apps, wallets, and protocols. Apps, wallets, and protocols pay transaction fees, priority fees, MEV fees to validators. And validators kick back some of those transaction fees, priority fees, and MEV fees to stakers, right? So our products and services are meant to capture value at every layer of the stack. And not only that, but it really depends. As you go up that stack, you're generating, there's more and more money to be made, right? So we are still, that 2026 and beyond is truly, we're not hiding anything from you. We are thinking and working through what exactly the strategy will be. But first, of course, we want to conquer LSTs as a service, which we already have, as well as validators as a service, which we are just starting, as well as Gateway, which we've just built. By the way, if there are any protocols on this stream who are interested in operating their own validator, as well as getting world-class LST infrastructure, please be sure to hit me up after this forecast. We are very interested in talking to you because we are aggressively growing Sanctum State. In fact, if you know anybody, if there's anybody on this call who knows the founder of a protocol who is thinking about launching their own validator, you absolutely must message me. Okay, moving on. We are going to be talking about Funtarchy updates. That concludes our Q2 quarterly report. We are going to be shipping this every single quarter, of course, and I'm going to be going back to that quarterly report slide because I want to give you guys the opportunity to scan this QR code and learn more about all the exciting developments at Sanctum, not just the numbers, but also all the many, many product updates. And of course, we will continue to review these on a quarterly basis. So thank you very much for tuning in to all the insane updates over at Sanctum. I'm going to ask Nick to, hey, Nick, you still there? I know he's still there. I'm bringing Nick on the stage. How you doing, Nick?
Hey, everyone.
We're,
How's it going?
we're going to give people a chance to scan this QR code. And before we move on to the next section of the forecast, did you see any interesting comments or questions in the audience about the quarterly report? Would love to address those.
No questions so far, but chat has been pretty hype and everybody is pretty hype, I guess. Yeah.
Well, we
Only
got one
positive
question over here.
comments.
Web3
Oh,
Roy. Wow, I thought every transaction in Web3 is on chain. Is that gateway acting like a booster? Well, first of all transactions through gateway are on chain. And number two, it's acting more like an aggregator. So you can kind of think of it as air traffic control. And we are directing traffic where it needs to go, wherever it is most efficient and likely to land your transactions. Looking over some of these, a crowd favorite. It's been a while since Jay spoke on the forecast. Yes, Jay is very busy conquering the world right now. I'll be sure to get him on to one of these forecasts soon. Do we got any other meaningful questions about the Sanctum Q2 quarterly report? Let's see. Scrolling. Oh, I like this comment by Lucio. Just a matter of time before Sanctum is number one on Solana. We are gunning for that top spot, my friend. But as is the Sanctum ethos, under promise, over deliver. Iron Gateway. Very fun name. Love that. Okay, well, we are going to be moving on to the second half of this forecast. Nick, very good to see you here. Going to be sorry, leaving you. We are going to be moving on to a very special guest for the podcast, for forecast. But of course, there's a couple of things, a refresher that we probably want to give about Funtarchy. So what is Funtarchy, right? Well, Funtarchy is a modified version of Futarchy. So it's market-based decision-making, meaning that you don't vote yes or no. What you vote on is the economic value of any proposal. Do you think that a proposal is bullish or bearish for the price of cloud? If you think it's bullish, then you try to predict what the price of cloud should be based on your bullishness. And if you're bearish, then you should, judge what the price of cloud will be based on your bearishness. So just going over some of the basic stats, transparency and governance, the state of cloud. Number one, we previously, if you remember the old numbers, we've had 1,600 unique voters for Futarchy, which blows all over the protocols in the world that use Futarchy. Collectively, you put all those voters together, we have the most voters, right? But this number isn't even accurate anymore. We don't have 1,648 unique voters. We have, in fact, over 1,800 unique voters as of our last proposal. And I suspect there will be even more unique voters, especially since these folks, 50% increase in their cloud bags. That is insane. So, previous results are not indicative of future results, but you just to be aware, it was not enough people voting on Futarchy, to be completely honest with you. And so if we get some more participation, you too can also increase your cloud bags. But that's not what I'm most excited about. We have a very special guest, so I don't know. Maybe I'm building up too much hype here. Can anyone guess who the guest is? I'll give you a hint. He's a very, very OG Cloud member, and he may or may not already be in this chat right now. Can anyone guess? We're gonna give this like 5, 6 seconds. Teasing too much. Oh, teasing. Wonder who? Teasing too much. All right. Well, you know what? We're just gonna get this show on the road. Of course, we are inviting to the stage James Hanley, the Manly, everybody. James Hanley is, of course, a OG community member. We like to call him the chief whiteboard explainer over at the Sanctum community. It's been a while, James. You are muted, my friend. How are you?
So good. I love your energy, mate. It's fantastic. I absolutely love to see it. So it's good to be here.
We had people guessing correctly. In fact, right after I asked, almost immediately, Lucio. I mean, if I had additional prizes to give, I would give them. But yeah, Lucio said basically immediately James. And
Yeah,
you know,
Guok as well. I saw Guok got that. So well done,
yeah,
Guok. Another OG Cloud Master.
yeah. Giancarlo, yo, James. Let's get W's in the chat for James. We absolutely love James. Ooh, we have a lot
I'm
of
loving all the support here. Yeah, there's a lot of old names I'm seeing pop up. It's quite nice.
Yes. We had one person guess Alkine, which actually isn't a bad guess. But this time around, we're bringing on an OG Sanctum community member. And of course, no introduction to James Hanley would be complete without this whiteboard. So, James, you want to tell people a little bit about yourself? These whiteboards, I mean, there's a lot of folks. There's over 3,700 people on the stream. There's a lot of folks who don't know who you are, right? So, who are you, James?
Well, this whiteboard here is a bit of an old one. This is how Eno and I actually met. So which is a long time ago now. But yeah, I had a previous life working in a consulting firm called KPMG here in Australia. And basically I'd spend my nights and weekends doing what most people here doing, which is, learning everything about crypto. And one of the things that I did was I started creating whiteboards to kind of explain how things work. So I would do all this research, I'd read all these documents, and then I would use whiteboards to try to teach other people what I was learning. And this here is one of those whiteboards. And that's how and I met. So yeah, have I answered your question?
Yeah, no, that you absolutely have answered my question. And these whiteboards are not a joke. You literally hand drew these for hours over the weekend. Is that true?
Some of these would take me like a full day, like literally an entire day, which is kind of embarrassing. But this is a huge whiteboard, right? Like you're only seeing a little photo, but like it's like a massive, like bigger than me size whiteboard that I'm drawing on this wall. Yeah, it's quite meditative. I was never quite creative, but I think the whiteboard sort of brought something out of me. So it's nice that's now my brand.
I find you very, very creative, especially some of the naming conventions that you created. I remember there was this really fantastic whiteboard where you broke down different members of the community, I believe, and it was like cloud seeders as well as like I don't even remember, but it was just like 4 or 5 different archetypes. And I was like, damn, this guy really has a brain for explaining very complex concepts in very simple graphics that anybody can understand.
You're very kind. That was probably one of my best. Yeah, that was good fun.
Didn't you get contacted by Akshay? I mean, I don't know where I heard this story, but I know a lot of things about you just because we're friends. But it's like you might have told me this, but I also might have just heard it from Akshay. Like, didn't he contact you?
He might have told you. He did hit me up. He actually asked me to do this one here. He said, "I want you to do something like this," and so I said, "All right, I'll do it." And that was where this one came from. So he nudged me to do it, which I'm grateful to Akshay for giving me a bit of a kick up the bum to do more.
I remember you telling me that, I mean, you do have a whiteboard in your office right there. I can see a corner of it right in the background. But with an insane amount of writing. But
too much. I can't show it's trade secrets.
Yes. But you actually told me that you had done whiteboards in your old office over at KPMG, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, I was doing them literally on the weekends and late at night. Yeah. It was like dark. I was the only person in the office at like midnight. That committed to the game.
So, guys, like, I think my favorite part of that story, which is just a completely irrelevant detail, and I think James is embarrassed whenever I mention this, but it's 100% true. The meeting room where he used to create these whiteboards had a light with a motion sensor. And if you didn't move often enough, then the light would just go out in the meeting room. And James, being the thinker that he is, would just stare at the whiteboard. Because I don't know, sometimes you got to think. And, every 5 minutes or so, this light is fucking going off. And he's just waving his hand and then looking at the whiteboard for another 5 minutes. Light goes off and he waves his hand again to activate the light. So I'm just imagining James at the KPMG offices in some random meeting room working on an LST staking whiteboard every 5 minutes, just like waving his hand to keep the light activated.
Very accurate. The only light in the building at midnight. Everyone's looking in the big building. There's one light on at the top floor. That was me in that meeting room doing this, waving every couple of minutes.
Oh, we are graced by a very OG presence on Solana, Sitesh. He's one of the best writers. Yeah, one of the best writers on Solana. And he says, James, the whiteboard guy, absolutely is the whiteboard guy. But James, we brought you for a very specific purpose today.
Yes,
and that purpose is the whiteboards are sexy, but you, I guess in your spare time when you're not working on whiteboards, are also coming up with handy dandy governance proposals. So this is a proposal that you wrote called Operation Rip the Band-Aid. Very catchy name. I would encourage everybody who hasn't gone to the Sanctum research forums to read his proposal. I know a lot of you OG Cloud members have read it. I've seen your comments. I've seen your likes. But for those of you who want to learn more about the proposal that James wrote, which is Operation Rip the Band-Aid, visit the Sanctum research forums. All you got to do, again, is to scan that QR code. We also have, this, I guess we can bring it up right now. If you scan that QR code, then what you will find is actually this governance proposal on research.sanctum.so. Again, this is our research forum. And we're going to be going over some of the specifics of this proposal. But before we do have this window open to us. I want to just give you a second to maybe set the stage for me, right? I won't talk too much. I'll just listen. So tell us a little bit about Operation Rip the Band-Aid. Do you want me to go into the first 3 points, or you just want to go off the cuff for a second?
We can go off the cuff. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So basically, maybe I could explain where it came from.
We'll get into that in just a second. But okay, you know what? We're going to go over.
Oh, well, let's just skip ahead. Yeah, let's go into it. Yeah,
we're skipping right ahead to the. Well, you know what? Let's go over these core points. I apologize. We got to do a TLDR for Rip the Band-Aid. So let's start with number 1, James.
Okay, so there's 3 points here to summarize. The first one is that right now, about 9% of the total token supply is in the investor allocation bucket. And that's the early Sanctum investors. And it's going to be continuously unlocking for the next 2 years. So what my proposal is suggesting is for these early investors, for this 9% supply, I want to offer them the opportunity to get all of that supply immediately instead of vesting over 24 months. But in order to get that right now, they have to give up 30% of that to the Sanctum Reserve. And then finally, what that means is that could be up to 27 million additional cloud for the Sanctum Reserve, which I think if we rip the Band-Aid and get the supply in circulation now, I think it'll make for a healthier supply schedule over time, because that Sanctum Reserve is much more longer term. And so I think it will set up the supply dynamics of the token to be optimal for us all.
Whoa, James. You want to unlock all the investor tokens?
all 9% of them, yes.
Yes. Okay, well, first I'm going to bring up this graphic because I think this will better explain exactly what you're talking about. So this is the entire cloud allocation, right?
Yep.
We have, of course, our community allocation, team allocations, LFG launch. We have the launch airdrop as well as the reserve. And now we have this little bit here, right? This 13%, right? So again, what is happening to these investor tokens currently? Like, what is the current state of investor tokens? How much have been unlocked? How much have yet to be unlocked? Over what period of time?
Yeah. So these investors, I don't know when they invested, maybe 2 years ago or something. They basically didn't see any tokens until now. So what happened was, I believe in July, so it must have been maybe 3 weeks ago or something, those investors got 1/3 of all of their tokens. So initially, this was 13% of the total supply, and all of those early investors got 1/3 of that. So whatever that is in percentages. So now what's remaining to be vested over the next 2 years is 9%, so 2/3 of that. So they currently have 1/3 of those tokens in their wallets, I'm assuming, and then the remainder will slowly drip feed to their wallets over the next 2 years. And essentially what I'm offering them is saying, well, why don't we give you all the rest now, but you have to give up 30% of the rest, and then that'll go to that reserve 11% there.
Right. Exactly. So again, just to break this down for folks that need a little bit more granular detail here, to be very clear, we have 9% of the token supply from the investor allocation, which is unlocking over the next 2 years, right? The next 24 months. This started in July, correct?
Yep. I think it was a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Just a few weeks ago. And also, to be very, very clear, like what's the discrepancy between 13% and 9%? Well, that discrepancy is, James,
1/3 of those have already unlocked. So that's what
Yes.
happened a few weeks ago.
Right. So investors who are early believers in Sanctum, before he was even called Sanctum, called Socian, got 1/3 of their token allocations, and they deserve that as early believers in the project, right? So of this 13% that could have been unlocked, 33% of it already has been unlocked, and so that's why this proposal is not about the full 13%, because we can't do anything about the 1/3 allocation that investors already have in their wallets. That's theirs. They've claimed that, right? But then you have this other 66%, right? Another 2/3 of their allocation. So that's the 9% that we're referring to, right? So again, there are 9% of the token supply currently that has not been unlocked for investors, but it has been earmarked for them, and it will unlock over the next 24 months. And again, your proposal, James, is to give them an offer, right? And could you restate that offer one more time for the people in the back?
Yep. So the offer is, we will give you the rest of those tokens immediately today, but the cost to you is you have to give up 30% of that remaining amount to the team reserve for longer term growth of the protocol. So
Right.
if we gave it all to them straight away, there'd be no cost to them. So that of course they would all take it, but that would kind of be at the expense of everyone else. So we don't want that. There needs to be some sort of trade-off, and that's what I'm proposing. 30% they have to surrender. So what that means in nominal terms is, because they've already unlocked 1/3, if they accept this 30% discount offer on the rest, what it'll mean is they'll effectively be getting 20% less than they originally would have overall, because they've already got 1/3. So it gets a little bit complicated, but if you math it out, it basically means that if one of the investors were expecting, say, 10 million tokens after a few years, they'll end up with 8. So it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's get into these kind of pre-prepared questions so that we can really dive deep, and hopefully, I'm sure that there's a lot of questions in the chat already that we will go over, but first, let's just go over some of the broader questions that we've already seen. So like, number one, like, where did this idea come from, right? Like, why this idea?
Yeah, so basically, I noticed in the lead up to July, which I'm sure everyone here did, that there was a lot of selling of the token, which didn't really make sense to me, because Sanctum's fundamentals are literally like up and to the right. Everything is growing. The rate of growth is like accelerating. It's like the most phenomenal like fundamental story, Sanctum's like business. But the selling of the token was like the inverse of that. And I was really confused as to what was going on. And basically came to the conclusion that, well, that tells me that the market is concerned about these supply unlocks, because the market had known that these tokens were going to be vesting soon. So it seemed to me as if the market, quote unquote, was basically selling to get ahead of that expected selling. And so what I thought was, well, that's telling me that the market is concerned about this supply unlocks. So why don't we rip the Band-Aid? And why don't we take the rest of the investor unlocks and offer them to just unlock immediately, rip the Band-Aid, take the short-term pain, with the view that that'll set up for a much better, stronger, longer-term upside, which will hopefully be more aligned with the strength of the business fundamentals.
Right. And also I saw in your proposal that this is not that crazy of an idea. There are actually equivalents to this outside of crypto, right? So do you actually want to explain to people, like, historically or even in different industries, like, or different situations in which we see investors giving up like a proportion of their tokens in order to get access to liquidity now?
Yeah, so like this is actually pretty common in crypto, but a lot of and this isn't the sake for Sanctum. So Sanctum actually have gone against this, but this is kind of an industry standard in crypto that a lot of teams and a lot of early investors, they'll do what are sort of these called these like OTC deals, which are basically private deals where they'll sell their locked up tokens to other investors, but at a discount to the current market price. And so rather than waiting 2 years for those tokens to unlock, those OTC deals can often attract like a 50% discount to the market price of the token, or even like 70% in some extreme cases to the current market price of the token. So when I put this proposal together, I was thinking like, what is some comparable thing that I can compare that to? And it's what I've just described, which is 50 to 70% discounts. So I thought, well, how can I, in my proposal, offer something that is actually really respectful of those early investors for believing in Sanctum, but also is actually quite generous to them and doesn't make them feel like they're getting a bad deal. And so that's why I proposed 30% in this proposal, because it's sort of analogous to OTC deals, but far better terms for the investors.
Okay, I see. So number one, you're benchmarking what OTC deals look like in a crypto context, and as you rightfully pointed out, in some cases, in order to get instant access to liquidity by just getting rid of their tokens, that can attract like a 50 to a 70% discount.
Yeah.
And as to like, and I think this goes really well with this next question, which is like, why 30%? Right? Can this be changed? If I understood your answer to this question correctly, what you're saying is that it's a mixture of benchmarking existing OTC deals, but also, right, being fair, right?
Yeah.
And like, I don't think I have to explain to people the importance of wanting to be fair, right? But I think maybe what needs to be explained to people is like, why be fair to these people? It's fairly obvious to us as the project, right? But for other people who might be a little bit more mercenary or not, like, who cares about these people, right? Like, why is it important to be fair to these folks, James?
Well, I mean, we all believe in Sanctum. We're all here because we think the team is amazing and like the product is great, and it's like a strong. It's something to believe in. It's something to get behind. And those early investors, this 13% of the pie, they believed in it before it was even resembled a fraction of what it is today. And so I think if we were to vote on this, we should be treating those early investors with respect and offering them a very good deal, like very good terms. I think it's a gesture of respect and a good thing to do. So that's why I landed on 30%, because it actually is quite good.
Yeah, but what if we have, let's say, and we'll get into this a little bit, but this is not up for a vote yet. This is very much a discussion. This is a very active discussion, isn't it, James?
Yep. Yeah. So I've put together a proposal, and at the end of the proposal, I'm saying, hey, give me some feedback. What's your opinion? What are your thoughts? It's not up to me if it'll be pushed for a vote.
Right. But that goes into this second question, right? Can this be changed, right? Like, this is very much a negotiation. Like, in some sense, this number is arbitrary. In another sense, it's very much not arbitrary, right? It's based on a benchmark and also trying to be fair to our partners. So it's like not completely arbitrary, but like we can say to some level, like, this is actually up for negotiation and discussion, correct?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. If you disagree, tell me. Like, if you put it in the research forum, like, give me your opinion, share it. None of this is concrete. This is just you can see my reasoning. I've written my reasoning out in the proposal. That's the point. So if you have different reasoning, if you think things should be different, then I'll consider that. And there's already a few things that I've got at the very bottom of the proposal. There's 2 dot points for like potential changes to incorporate. So yeah, if you come up with some good suggestions, I'll stick them in there.
I think it's really interesting to see FP's comments here. And you know exactly what damn comment I'm talking about. Thanks for the awesome proposal, James. I think this is a good start. I can shop it around investors and see how many of them would be likely to take this deal. If this will reassure the community, I don't have any issues doing it. Team reserve tokens are meant for the long term. I want to temperature check this crazy idea. What if, James, We just accelerated investor token vesting and unlocked all of them right now with no discount. Then we would definitely have some short-term pain, but afterwards there would be no further unlocks or sell pressure apart from the team. But that is, a crazy idea, right? Like, what if, James, we just accelerated the token vesting and unlocked all of them right now? It's okay for reasonable people to disagree. Reasonable people can have different points of view, right? FP is just throwing this idea out there, right? Like, what if we just unlocked all the tokens, screw 24 months, short-term pain, investors are happy. We don't ask for a discount or anything. They just get all their tokens, right? What do you think about that?
I don't like it at all. The reason being is because, one, I have no idea the legality of that. Like, those investors signed legal vesting contracts with some entity. Like, I don't know how that works, but they did not sign a legal contract for vesting tokens with this forum on Sanctum research and 20 people like me putting proposals in and voting on it. So I don't even know if it would be legal to do something like that. My preference is to give people options rather than forcing them. I definitely see where FP is coming from. Like, if you want to rip the Band-Aid, like, this is me reading between the lines. If you want to rip the Band-Aid, then rip the freaking Band-Aid. Don't do this little like pulling at the edge. So I totally get where FP is coming from, but I don't like it because I'm a risk guy. And I'm thinking to myself, if you did that, basically they're getting this benefit at the expense of everybody else. And so I think that stakers wouldn't feel that that's fair. I think that other community members would probably feel that that's not fair. And I also don't know if it would be legal to do such a thing. I have no idea. So yeah, so that's my like summaries. I don't like it. It feels like it's way too good, and it's all sorts of problems. I see that. So anyway, FP, I hope you don't mind me disagreeing with you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're all about healthy debate over at Sanctum. But yeah, and we have different perspectives. There's obviously a crazy range, anywhere from 0 to, hypothetically 70%, which I think would be a very steep cost for an early investor who put so much faith into the team. So not entirely sure that's exactly fair. Just my 2 cents there. But there's somewhere in between 0 and 70% that I think works. But, I think... this next slide is there's question is super important, which is like, what about short-term sell pressure, bro? You're gonna unlock unspecified amount of tokens into the cloud price. Cloud price is not at historical all-time highs. So what the fuck, James? Like, seriously?
Yeah, seriously. And the reason I say seriously is because if they say yes, like, this is the point of the proposal. The point of ripping a Band-Aid is you experience a little bit of pain immediately, and then it goes away, and then you feel real good after. Instead of like pulling it one little hair at a time and you delay the pain and it's a much worse experience, this is the entire point of the proposal. Can we find a way to rip the Band-Aid of some of that supply overhang? And maybe it's a bit of short-term pain with the view that it'll be much healthier longer-term gain. So someone might say, well, the team allocation is much bigger than the investor allocation, so why don't you look at that? I don't want the team to vest because I want them to stick around and keep building Sanctum and doing a great job like they are.
Yes.
But investors, on the other hand, it's a different trade-off. It's a much more passive kind of role as opposed to an active role, whereas the team is actively working. So that means the only thing that I could sort of tackle with my proposal was really that investor portion. And so that's why I'm proposing it. So might it be bad for short-term sell pressure? Maybe. But that's the point. That's why you rip a Band-Aid. You experience a little bit of pain quickly, and then you feel much better after.
I'm just going to say, and this is not financial advice, but let's suppose that you're a person who's very bullish on cloud, right? Like, you're very bullish. You don't understand why the price is reflected the way that it is. You're looking at the quarterly reports and you're seeing that Sanctum is posting historical numbers for the company. We're one of the top revenue generating businesses on Solana. That's not a fiction, that's fact today. That's not even a wish or a desire. That is something that is reality today, right? Mm-hmm. So let's suppose that you're very bullish on the long-term direction of cloud, and you see these paper-handed investors selling your token down to, ungodly lows, right? that sounds like opportunity to certain people, right? So it really depends on how you want to look at it. So that's just something to keep in mind, right? So that's what we think about short-term sell pressure. Yeah, obviously the most likely scenario is that if you unlock tokens for a bunch of paper-handed people, what are they going to do with it? They're going to sell.
Can I
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
quickly jump in there?
Go ahead.
I mean, I see very little downside here. Like, let's say none of the investors take the opt-in. That is incredibly bullish. That is like a massively bullish signal to the market that, oh, wait, hang on a minute. All of this 9% of supply is not even willing to take a very, very, very generous offer, like this 30% discount to immediately vest. But they're actually just going to vest slowly and maybe stake. That's a fantastically bullish signal. If they do take the offer, some of them, and then they sell immediately, it's just as you said, we've ripped the Band-Aid and it's achieved its objective, which is like that short-term pain for longer-term gain. But let's just say, like I saw in some of the conversation here, people talking about but couldn't they stake them and that would give them some advantage or something. I actually think that's almost the best outcome. If we can get our investors to go from just passive investors to active stakers and active governance participants, isn't that the whole point of this? That's actually a win as far as I see it. So I see very little downside here, which is as I articulate in the proposal. To me, this is like a win-win-win.
Yeah, I agree. Because essentially what you're doing is getting someone to align long term on, and if you're staking your cloud tokens, then you probably feel a particular way about the protocol, especially if you're not selling it. Which leads us into our next question, which is what happens next? Well, actually, before we go into what happens next, I'm actually going to skip ahead to a section that was meant for the end of the call, but I'm seeing so many great questions here. We're going to move to it right now, which is ask us anything. And
yeah, there's a lot of questions in the chat.
Yeah, and I think that we could be here all damn night talking about this proposal. But first, let's start with a softball question. Will there be a vote soon? Well, it depends on how this discussion goes. To be very clear, this is just a discussion. This isn't even something that's officially up for a vote yet. This is simply just a moment for us to talk about a proposal that was brought up by a very beloved community member, and we actually thought was very interesting and worth a discussion. We were just looking for the right opportunity. So will there be a vote? To be seen. We would love for this to go to a vote next week. But first, would love to gauge the temperature in the room. Let's start with Lucio as well. I love the proposal. Reminded me of the airdrop vesting strategy, which is great to mitigate the sell pressure since it spreads out the sell pressure, since people claim at different moments, making price action less predictable and less vulnerable to speculation and manipulation. So yeah, I mean, that was more of a very supportive comment than a question. But that is the point, right? Again, what is the point? Why is it called Rip the Band-Aid, James?
Because it's short-term pain for longer-term gain.
It's exactly. I love how that rhymes as well. And we have Tiggles as well, who says, they can either take all or let it sit there like the original plan. The proposal has to be voted on first. Yeah, I mean that is true. We have to wait for the proposal to be voted on first to see how exactly this plays out. By MD, what are the pros and cons of this proposal to the current cloud holders? Pros: long-term health of cloud, right? So would you rather have a lot about tokens and how people feel about them is narrative, right? And so there's two different narratives or stories that can play out here. And I mean, there's infinite stories, but just let's talk about investor allocations, right? One story is that, God damn it, this cloud token has another 2 years of unlocks. That is one story, right?
Yeah.
And so for 2 years, the team just has to deal with comment after comment after comment and investors saying, I would love to invest, but I'm seeing that we have an 8%, 9% of the supply that has yet to be unlocked over the next 2 years. Pass. I'm not going to be exit liquidity for some, some shady investor that's, they're not shady at all, by the way. They believed in us. But from the perspective of an investor, that's one story, though, right? There are these unknown whales that have huge cloud bags. And if I buy cloud right now, what that means for me is that I become exit liquidity. That's one story, right? What's the other story, James?
Mate, I was reading questions in the chat. You can't do that.
It's
to
all
me.
good. I'm so sorry.
You're on a
The-
roll. I was quickly scrolling
the other story, and now I know that James does not pay
Help me
attention to me
out.
while I'm
Help me
babbling,
out.
but that's fine. James never listens to me.
Called out.
Okay,
Called out on
but no, sorry, my bad, James. But seriously though, the one story is that you have these fucking investors that are holding so many tokens. It's like 9% of the supply, and like, why would I invest right now? Because they're just gonna dump on me anyways, right? So like that's one story. Or the other story is, okay, the investors who are paper handed, we know who they are, and we know who they are because they took the deal. And what did they do? Well, I mean, they sold their cloud tokens most likely, right? Or in a best case scenario, they stake it, and they're participating in governance, which we would actually love to see. But in that story, right, it means that the most painful thing that could have happened to cloud, which is up to a 9% unlock, has already happened. And so what that means is 2 or 3 months from now, we're not even talking about investor allocation to the cloud price, right? Like that's the reality that we could live in. So those are the two different stories or the two narratives that can play out for the cloud token as it pertains to investor allocations. So I think that's the pros and the cons, right? The cons is that you get short-term supply shock, right? Like you're going to get a bunch of people who are selling, right? The pros, though, maybe actually, that's not even for sure,
don't even know.
right? Yeah, we don't even know. That is true. But those are the pros and cons as I understand them. Konstantinos, very good to see the Catalytics team here, the DevRel for Jupiter. They're doing amazing things for Jupiter. So good to see you, brother. Again,
Can I address this one?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So why not ASR rewards? I thought about this. The reason why not is because the original pie is actually split down the middle. Half the pie is team and investor. The other half of the pie is community. So if you look at that original pie chart, you could literally draw a line in the middle and like half is team investor, the other half is community. This investor allocation actually came from the team side. And so that's why it made sense to me that rather than going into the community reserve, which is actually bigger than the team reserve, it should actually go into the team reserve because that can be used for like longer term strategic initiatives to actually grow Sanctum. I don't see the community reserve, and maybe this is like naive on my part, but I don't see that community reserve as like something that the team would use for strategic initiatives, but the team reserve they would. And I think there's potentially more upside in that team reserve for this cloud than on the community side. Very happy for you to disagree on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is actually probably really important topic of conversation with the community. And they have to understand the potential choices here, right? What do we do with that 30% is a huge open question. I do not think that in the scope of this potential proposal that we earmark that cloud for a specific purpose. For example, ASR, whether it be for ASR or like some sort of incentives program on Camino or whatever that may be. I do not think that we should earmark this 30% for a specific purpose. However, we should be absolutely unequivocally clear about where that 30% will go. Will it go into the team reserve for the team to use to grow Sanctum? I mean, actually, to be quite frank, James, all of this is to grow Sanctum, right? Whether it ends up in the community bucket or the team reserve bucket. The main differences here would be that if it goes to the community reserve, it means that we would have to use we would have to get approval from the community about how exactly that 30% would be used. Whereas it goes into the team reserve, that would be at our discretion, right?
I think the other part is though, like if you just look at how these numbers add up, right now they're like 50-50. But if we moved that into the community side, it would actually make the community pie bigger than the portion of the pie bigger than the team investor side. So for balance, it made sense to me that it was on the team side.
I see. So from your perspective, it felt more fair since okay, because to be very clear,
exactly. It came
where
from
did
the team
side. Where did the investor allocation come from? From your perspective, yeah. What you're actually, it's not even perspective; it's just fact, right? It's like
exactly. Yeah,
literally, investors. We didn't sell any of the community portion. We kept that very, very high intentionally in the beginning. We took out those tokens from the team. The team gave up those tokens to investors so that they could grow and create Sanctum. right? And so what you're suggesting is that returns back to the team, not in terms of team their own personal pockets.
Yeah, it's
like,
not
that's
team members. No, it's team
no.
reserve. Yeah.
Yeah, it would
Which
be
is
the
like
team
business
reserve,
runway. Yeah.
right? That would allow the team to continue to grow Sanctum very aggressively. So that is another point of discussion that I think is worth talking about. But to answer, and it's not completely off the table, by the way. Like, this is the whole point of a community discussion. It's not off the table that this would be earmarked for ASR rewards. We're just saying, I'm giving you my personal take on it, right? But if you feel very strongly that it should be allocated, then make that case, and I would
Then
love
you
to hear
need to
your
post on the forum.
yes,
reply
post on the
to
forum.
Reply to my proposal.
just another show here. You can go over to research.sanctum.so to see Operation Rip the Band-Aid, which is a lovely proposal posted by our very own James Hanley, who is an OG and beloved community member. We have Johnny, who asks us, have any of the early investors expressed such interest in such a scheme? So I can't disclose too much here. One, because I'm only aware of one investor that we reached out to, and two, I'm pretty sure I'm not allowed to say. But let me put this: we will be transparent about and let's talk about transparency in the scheme, because really what this person is talking about, I think Johnny is talking about, is transparency, right? You even have this in your proposal. You already thought this through. Which is that there will be a on-chain signature that signals interest in the proposal. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, so that's what I proposed, but obviously, I'm not sure exactly how to do it. But I was essentially recommending that the Sanctum team would notify investors. Then there would be some sort of on-chain signature to say, yes, we intend to participate, and so then everyone can see like how many of these investors have opted in or not, so that it's really transparent, right? That's the intention.
Yeah, exactly. And this signature would essentially be an opt-in for if the plan goes through, right? Like, essentially, like, if the plan goes through as we expect it to, then by like signing your on-chain interest, then you would get your tokens then, right? Or are you imagining that there would be additional signatures or agreements required? What's your thinking?
Now, what I think would happen is, what I'm proposing is that those investors would indicate an intention, and there would be a specific target date. And then after that cutoff, then no more signatures can count, and then basically there would be a date at which this would happen. Obviously, this is all depending on if it passes a vote, right? And then everything would sort of happen. I don't really know how the vesting is handled, but yeah, that would be up to the team to basically do it. And because everything is verifiable on chain, everyone could prove that it's happened or not.
Yeah. And I love this question from Guac because he asks, has there been expressed interest from investors? No reason to put it up if they won't take it, right? It's similar to Johnny's question, but it's different. And the reason why I like it is because we actually have a point of view on this, right? There actually is a reason to put it up, even if they won't take it. We've talked about this before, but like, James, just break that through one more time. Like, why would it make sense for us to even vote on this proposal if no investor takes the deal? Like, what's the damn point?
Well, then that signals to the market, which was obviously concerned about the unlocks 3 weeks ago. It signals to the market that these investors are actually very long-term aligned. They do not want to take a discount because they also want to hold cloud because they believe in Sanctum. That's a bullish indicator for Sanctum. So it's a big vote of confidence from those early investors if none of them take the deal with very favorable terms.
Yeah. So let's say that we pass or vote on this proposal, right? So we vote on this proposal, and let's suppose that it passes. Well, if it does pass, then there's two different outcomes here, right? One outcome is that you have investors who take the deal, and another outcome is that very few investors take that deal, right? In a world in which investors take that deal, then the worst thing that could have possibly have happened to the cloud token has already happened, right? Investors have gotten their 70% allocation of the remaining 66%. I'm throwing around a lot of numbers here. But they get the tokens that they're owed at a discount, right?
Yep.
And then they sell, and the worst thing to ever happen to cloud has already happened. And so therefore we can move on with our damn lives, right?
Yep.
Or scenario number 2, nobody takes the deal, right? And I, by the way, am not a very quiet person. So what do you think that I'm going to be shouting about on this forecast? For people who say, oh my goodness, Cloud has another 2 years of token unlocks. Well, what I'm going to say to these people is that, well, actually, we offered these investors the ability to get all their liquidity right now for a 30% discount, which is very generous, especially if you benchmark that against existing OTC deals. I mean, we're only asking them to take a 30% haircut, which by normal standards is not that much. And they didn't take the deal. And they didn't take the deal because they think Sanctum is at an all-time low at currently, the Cloud token price, and therefore only has room to run. They're bullish on Cloud, and so therefore want to stay. So those
Which
are
says
really,
that's an indication to everyone else. You shouldn't be afraid. You shouldn't be afraid of this supply overhang, which is a massive vote of confidence.
Yes. And some digits says, the trade-off here could be a potential short-term price dump, but less overhang over the next few years. It's a win, in my opinion, as tokens with more supply unlocked equals better investments and holder value. Appreciate that, some digits. I think one other thing to note here is, okay, so let's say that people get access to the liquidity, they dump, and it's like, what's the path forward for Cloud then, right? It's like, we just keep building and we keep talking about Sanctum bullish news. And then I don't know, I just feel there's a logical limit to how much the market can dump before people feel like, okay, like, first of all, I think Cloud price is comically low as it is. I mean, that's just not financial advice. That's just my own personal opinion. And so it's like, if it's already, if the price has already been holding at this level, and we know that it's holding at this level for reasons that I can't disclose, but we know that it's holding at this level, and that's because the market is kind of consolidated around like this is pretty low, right? For people who are selling into that, right? Like I'm fairly certain that, man, I James, I get nervous when I start talking about tokens, man. Everything coming out of my mouth feels like financial advice. I feel like it's fine to say on the podcast, like Soul Brothers podcast, but not necessarily for forecasts. You know what I mean?
Careful,
I know. Got to be very careful here.
Legal counsel's messaging you on Telegram right now.
Yes,
Shut
legal.
Up, stop. Can
Just
I just jump in?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I saw there's someone called Anonym001 who's posted a few questions here. And they've just dropped one in and they say, if you can get 30% just for one ASR season, even the longer term will accept the deal. So basically what they're saying is all the investors are going to take this deal because they can get 30% in ASR by staking. I think that is reflective of the past, just to be really clear. That's what has happened, but that's not necessarily what will happen. You're frozen. Am I still here?
Oh, no, I'm not frozen. I'm actually paying attention to you.
You just focused. Sorry. I thought my connection dropped. But no, I just wanted to be really clear. Like, everyone should manage their expectations around ASR rewards. Like, the reason why the ASR reward was so big in the first was, as Eno said earlier, not many people participated. So it was like disproportionate, the reward. But since that first ASR, the amount of stake has like doubled. I don't know, maybe more, maybe less. I don't know, but it's increased. And so there's more stake competing for the same amount of reward, and there's more people participating potentially, which means that you shouldn't expect as much. So I think if those investors, I think they'd be smart enough to realize that the math wouldn't math for that. And also, I don't know that there's any other ASRs that are up for vote. Like, is there another ASR season that I'm not aware of? I don't think so. I think it was just this first one, right?
Yeah. So
anyway,
we
just wanted to address that.
Yes, fair enough. And I'd love to offer a conflicting perspective, because we're all about being fair here, not just like ramming down a point of view down your throat. Pedro is like, honestly, way happier to keep the 24-month vesting schedule, and I would actually love for Pedro to break down his thoughts there. Like, what exactly is what's the fear? Happy to discuss that. So, Pedro, if you're still here, would love to hear why you would be much happier with a 24-month vesting schedule. Let's see. Jay's here. Oh man. Oh no, Jay's here. He listened to He listened to me blab on about cloud token
He
price.
was the one
which-
calling you saying stop, stop, stop.
yeah, definitely not allowed to make those to make those statements. And this is the question that you were asking about, right? Like mathematically, it's
Yeah.
obvious to take 30%
Yeah.
tuck. Yeah.
It's not going to be relevant because the ASR ends in August, and August is now. And by the time this proposal would be voted on, then that's no longer relevant. So maybe for
Right.
future ASRs potentially. But the reality is, if our investors, as I said earlier, if our investors became active community participants and voters and contributors and governance, like that's a win. We want more people involved, right? Do we? Do we not? So I think there's on the upside. I don't think that's a counter argument. Yeah.
Right. Killer Poe, man, there are a lot of I am loving that people are asking quality questions today. Killer Poe, something I mentioned before is staking cloud is one thing to be incentivized for holding cloud. However, liquidity provision and participating in other DeFi protocols with cloud, these people have only suffered at this point without relief. My question would be, are there going to be possibly ways to incentivize the users who still believe in cloud but are not staking but still participating in the Solana ecosystem with cloud? So if I've understood your question correctly, Killer Poe, what you're saying is that you would like other ways to be rewarded for providing liquidity, let's say, for DeFi protocols. I see. I mean, this is just one man's opinion, but your reward for LPing cloud is the LP fees. Like that's what that's for, right? There is no, for example, equivalent for staking your cloud though, right? Except for ASR. So it's all like, why do cloud stakers who vote with their cloud deserve more cloud? Well, they deserve that because they're locking up their cloud for a period of time. And they're paying enough attention to Sanctum, like actually participating in our governance, to warrant an additional cloud bonus for their effort, right? But what you're asking, I believe, if I understood it correctly, is, well, hey man, like I LP cloud all the time, and I don't see any cloud incentives for me. I'll let other people chime in here, but my 2 cents is that like your reward is the LP fees. Like that's the whole point of LPing is to get yield on the liquidity that you provide. So not to be harsh, but that's kind of how I see it. James, do you see it a little differently?
No, I think that's fair. I think the key point you made, was that the ASR, the key word is active staking rewards. So they're rewards for being active, participating, and contributing. It's not to say that liquidity providing is not active, because it can be active. But there is a reward for that. Like Eno said, there's risk because you might lose your capital, impermanent loss, whatever. But there is also a reward. You're earning LP fees. So you're doing that for some financial return. I don't know that really makes sense to have extra incentives on top of that. What I would say is it is something that I'm thinking about, like, how can Sanctum do bigger than what staking is currently? And maybe that looks like things outside of just staking. And that's something that I'm exploring at the moment, that I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a bit of a teaser.
And love to get differing perspectives. We have Tickles here, who's been participating since the beginning of the stream. Thank you so much for staying here, Tickles. And I love your name, by the way. It's fun. Could also split it 50% reserve, 50% ASR, if 30% is even obtained from the investors. That's a point of view. I don't really have a position on that, but I think that could work. That is an idea. You could certainly split up the allocation.
It's a good suggestion. And I did actually consider this. I thought about 50-50 originally in version 1 of my proposal. But then I came to the conclusion that would actually tip the scales to the community side of the 50-50 pie. And I thought that wasn't quite fair. So I thought, no, it should actually stay on the team side so that everything stays 50-50 between team side and then community side. But I do agree that my first initial intuition here was that it should be split down the middle. But when I thought about the origins of where that allocation actually came from, I didn't think it was quite fair. So I thought it should stay on the team reserve.
Okay, I see. and the best thing to do when you're talking about a proposal like this is to address people's fears. And MD02 says, worst case scenario is that early investors will create sell pressure and cloud will hit a new all-time low. Cloud just barely recovered, and we are ready to see another all-time low. And is the cloud strong enough to bounce back after the sell pressure? It's still a 50-50 win or lose, in my opinion. So all I can say is that Sanctum is a revenue generating business, and there is a theoretical limit to Jay, call legal. Call legal. Yeah. So Sanctum, I would understand MD's concerns about, is cloud strong enough to bounce back in a world in which Sanctum is earning, is not profitable, right? And is not growing. Like, I actually do understand that concern, because it's just kind of like, what the hell? It's all like this project makes no damn money, and the cloud price is all the way at an all-time low. Like, this is bearish, right? I understand that concern. I do think it's unlikely for reasons I am not allowed to elaborate on. Did I handle that delicately enough, James?
I don't know, mate. You need some legalese training, I reckon.
I know. I need to get media trained.
Just for the legal jargon. Yeah.
Yes. Trust the team on their plans to manage cloud long term. So I'm bullish on having more cloud in the team reserves. That is very kind of you, Lucio.
I feel the same.
Yes. Okay.
You know what? If I could just add something, I think there's one thing that could go wrong here with this proposal.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. What do you think could go wrong with this proposal?
Futarchy, how Futarchy works is it basically says, if you believe that the price of the token will be higher after this proposal passes, then you say, yes, I will buy. I agree to buy at a price. But this proposal is proposing to rip the Band-Aid, which is essentially implying, I expect that if this proposal passes, supply will be unlocked and the price of the token will fall. But to vote yes for that, I'm actually agreeing to pay a higher price for the token than I expect that it will be once the Band-Aid is ripped. So I'm actually incentivized with Futarchy voting to vote against this proposal, even if I want it to pass, because I'm expecting that the token price will fall if the proposal would pass. So it's almost like this is the worst kind of proposal I could have put forward for Futarchy, because I don't think it actually makes sense to vote yes on this proposal for the way Futarchy actually works. So yeah, that's what I think could go wrong here.
Well, that is only true if you're it depends on what time horizon you're looking at, right? So it really depends on immediate or more mid to long term. I think we need to talk to Profit.
I know the Futarchy guys. I can get their opinion, but that's me thinking about this as clearly as I can, and that's the conclusion that I've come to.
Yeah,
that this is the worst potential candidate for a Futarchy proposal, because if you vote yes on it, you're voting yes, expecting that the price will fall, and it's forcing you to buy at a higher price than you expect the token to be. So it's because Futarchy doesn't ask you the question of time horizon. It just says after this proposal passes, higher or lower. But I'm saying, no, pass the proposal to make it go lower so that over the longer term, it'll be higher. It's so in which case you would actually not want to buy at the higher price.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. That was a bit of a tangent.
Moving on to other questions. Fair enough. Do we have fair enough. No confirmed date for the next one, right? Yeah. So to actually go back to what we were talking about earlier, which is what happens next. So James, I'm going to take you off for this one. I'll bring you back in just a second. Okay. Thanks. So what happens next is that we had this old framework for how ideas would get promoted to voting with Sanctum governance. Well, first we had an idea, which is Sanctum governance. And then number two is draft, right? So for draft, which is the current stage that we're in, we have this proposal that was proposed by somebody that's been promoted from idea to draft. And we're going to be moving from draft, hopefully next week, into deliberation where we'll actually start to discuss this proposal. I mean, we're already discussing the proposal, but after we go from draft, we're going to be going into hopefully deliberation, and that will be voted on, right? So currently we're in the draft stages. James has already shared a wonderful draft of the proposal, and we'd like to deliberate over it over the next week. And then we'll keep you guys posted. We even might have an emergency stream over the next couple of days or so, just to progress this conversation forward a little bit more. And so now I'm going to be bringing James back onto the stage with a call to action. James, you're back. So we're on draft / deliberation. And now, what is this link for? Well, I've already told the people, but for people who have stuck around this long, if they scan that QR code, where will they be going?
They'll land where I just posted, which is the research forum, the Sanctum research forum. And it'll be a link to my proposal. So you can read all the details. All the conversation we've had should give you all the context you need. And then please set up an account if you don't have one, or log in and give me your feedback. That's all I need. I need you to give me feedback. This needs to be a proper discussion, so I can incorporate that into the next version.
Yes, appreciate that. Okay. So that concludes that conversation lasted for about an hour, James, which means that I think that we had a very healthy discussion about, Funtarchy. So,
and there's still a lot of questions we skipped. So that was very good.
Did we? I mean, I felt like I would love to. Do you mind sticking around a little bit more to answer more questions? I
just meant there was a lot in the chat. I didn't keep up with all of it, to be honest.
Yeah. I felt like we skipped over questions that felt a little repetitive. That's not to say that they weren't good questions. It's just that there's so many questions here. Let's see.
I think we should end it, and we should direct all of those comments and questions to the research forum. I think we can keep the discussion going there.
Okay. Well, Jay says, thank you, James, for the proposal, and Eno for the discussion. Excited to see how it goes. Always glad when a Sanctum co-founder joins the stream. We will be talking about Operation Band-Aid, Rip the Band-Aid, over the next couple of weeks. And, of course, if you don't want to miss another forecast, scan this QR code. It'll take you to our Luma. It'll put the forecast in your calendars so that you never miss it. And this has been forecast number 19. We have unpacked the absolutely insane growth over at Sanctum. As James likes to put it, Sanctum's growth is up and to the right. It is world-class. We are the 4th largest protocol on Solana by TVL in terms of revenue, growing literally every single day. And we're reaching all-time highs in terms of the amount of SOL staked in Solana, in Sanctum services. We've grown our product verticals from not just LSTs, but also validators service as well as gateway with the acquisition of the Ironforge team. Sanctum is getting bigger, badder, leaner, stronger, faster, smarter. And you can trust us. We have a lot of amazing things in the works. Let's give W's in the chat for James. Please, the whiteboard chief explainer. He put in a lot of time and effort into this proposal, and I really appreciate him making the time.
Thanks for having me. Good to see everyone.
Is Sanctum going to be a break point? You bet your sweet ass we're going to be a break point. Okay. Thanks for the discussion, James and Eno. Thank you very much for staying all the way from start to finish. And we will announce jersey winner. I mean, there were so many people who wrote great questions here. Nick, you might want to stick around for a little bit to try to find some. People wrote some really great questions. I wish every Sanctum stream was like this. Just a torrent of great questions. We should do this more often. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for your time, and adios.